Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to those of you around the world. Welcome to the daily Trade the Chain crypto update, where we give you everything you need to know for the next 24 hours and hopefully the next few days. Today is Thursday, January 25th, so getting close to wrapping up the end of the week. GDP, pardon me, GDP numbers did come in a lot hotter than expected. We had 3.3% GDP as opposed to 2% expected. Now, many would say that's great. GDP is rising. We're drifting away from recessionary conditions, or maybe slowly or drifting slower towards recessionary conditions, whichever you'd like to say. But if we go ahead and just quickly look at DXY is up, and equities did spike, but sold off a good bit of that spike. And I do think that is because people will be on pins and needles for PCE tomorrow, because remember, CPI came in a little hotter than initially expected for, earlier in this month, and that was for December CPI. So obviously this is going to be December PCE as well. Since we had a little hotter CPI, it wasn't too big of a deal though. And obviously GDP is up. This could kind of signal PCE coming in slightly hotter than expected. That could be a 2.7, that could be a 3.1, that could be a 3.2 for core. So it'll be very important to, I think, monitor this tomorrow for indication for your trades, at the end of the week or heading into next week, because obviously if PCE does come in hot, that could spark a bit of a sell-off, and obviously crypto is already looking a little heavy. So back to the TTC dashboard, we are obviously, crypto total market cap mostly unchanged from yesterday. Same for Bitcoin, same for ETH. Sentiment is same for Bitcoin. ETH sentiment's actually slightly up, so that's definitely something to take note of. Daily sentiment still average, and we have dropped a little bit on trading volume as well as, and tweet volume is continuously dropping. So definitely getting some signals that, we're not out of the weeds yet, but possibly, ETH bottoming here soon. I wouldn't entirely bet on it too much, but stablecoin flows do look fantastic. There's a lot of green. So people are definitely getting ready to buy some sort of dip, whether it comes or whether it doesn't. It does seem like someone or something is getting prepared. So that is also definitely a good sign. So moving into Bitcoin daily sentiment, nothing changed. We do want to see that curl up for positive, future predictions. ETH obviously is curling up. We'll go over ETH price action shortly, but definitely good to see. We did see a spike up, and then obviously it sold off and went back lower. So definitely important to monitor if this starts to curl back lower towards bearish sentiment levels. And then, of course, we did talk about DXY. It is still getting capped at the resistance level that we've been talking about for more than a week, for nearly 10 days now. If it does break again above 103.6, 103.7, it'll make its way up to 104.2 or possibly 104.6. If it gets rejected here, it will likely make its way down to 104, 102.4, 102.5. Possibly lower. So hopefully PCE comes in as expected tomorrow, which I would expect would send DXY lower. If PCE comes in hot or higher than expected, I would expect DXY to move higher and equities to move lower. So obviously, we talked about this yesterday. We're nice round numbers we're kind of focusing on here. So above 4,900 would expect kind of 49.40, 49.50 to kind of be the next natural target zone up here. Obviously, very similar to what we talked about yesterday. These are our resistance and support lines. These are, I'm not really trading around this right now, because I just think, being long equities was the move since early January. But if you are trading this or looking for, possibly an exit or entries, these are pretty much your lines right here. So above 4,900, higher. Below 48.66, you're going to drop down to 48.40. Hopefully 48.40 holds, and we can use that as, some sort of springboard. Ideally, 48.66 or 48.65 holds, and that would be a better springboard. But you have multiple areas of support here, as well as down here at 48.20. So you basically have kind of three lines of support, to kind of assist equities. Now, if PCE comes in hot, I wouldn't be shocked at a straight line down, maybe straight line down to 48.20 for a possible bounce. But it is important to consider all your options. So basically above 4,900, good, up to 4,950, below 4,900, are rejected from 4,900. Obviously 4,866 going to be support, kind of where we held, late yesterday into this morning. And then below that level, 4,840, below 4,840, 4,820. So I think you're going to get definitely some sort of move or spike higher or lower based on PCE tomorrow. I don't have that data, so I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but you just kind of got to get prepared and make sure that you're up, by 8:30 a.m. tomorrow and ready for that data to come if you are trading around it. Looking at Bitcoin, really not much has changed. We're pretty much sitting in the same situation that we've been sitting in since late Tuesday. Again, above 40.2, 40.7, above 40.7, 41.5. Below 39.6, head down to 38.5, below 38.5, head down to 38. So basically, you've got, very simplistic support and resistance. It's just a matter of what kind of move it makes. We're still hovering around this weekly VWAP. There's been no strength around it. Price is currently below it. And then we've got this 1 hour estimated 200 moving average, which keeps getting closer and closer to the weekly VWAP. And, that we may kind of see a similar event depending on PCE tomorrow over the weekend in regard to what happened, last Sunday, which was as soon as they got kind of close together, the market, we got a new weekly open, and then we just sold off. So hopefully if that does happen again, that is like the final sell off, maybe Sunday or Monday of this coming week is gross, drops us down to maybe, 37 or maybe 38, and then we kind of start to pick back up. But consolidating is definitely good, but we've seen this consolidation before, and it's definitely does not bode good predictions, at least in the near term. But again, 38, still that line in the sand. We can still drop a little bit lower, but I want to see us quickly rise back above 37, 38 if we do get below those levels. Looking at ETH, we do have a question for ETH. So new type, I do see your question. I will definitely get to those after we talk about ETH. So looking at ETH right now, very similar to Bitcoin, not much has changed. We've still got all of our lines in the sand, above 2224, 2255, above 2255, 2300, above 2300, 2355, above 2355, above 2443, below 2164, heading to 2115, below 2115, 2100, below 2100, 2070, below 2070, 2030. And again, 2100, big line in the sand for me. Just to give some context to it, for those who may not have watched previous episodes, 2100 coincides with pretty much the low of a year, and B, the low of this entire range that was formed pretty much since the beginning of December. So very important, for the month of December right here, as well as for the yearly low. So we definitely want to see 2100 hold. A 2100 sweep would not be that bad for ETH, because then you're just simply sweeping the yearly low, and then boom, that can set you up to definitely move higher. So again, I'm not entirely concerned with equities moving the way they are, but we do again have a red herring tomorrow with PCE that could put a shock into the system. But as long as PCE is not moving up, if we're at 2.7 tomorrow, that's not the worst thing in the world, but it is a bit of a worrying signal in terms of the market is expecting rate cuts in March. And if PCE is continuing to move higher, we're not going to get rate cuts as soon as we want. And then the market may kind of sell off on that opinion. And that would probably negatively affect crypto, just given the general weakness. So we definitely want positive PCE tomorrow. So new type's question was with ETH potentially bottoming, looking at high beta ETH plays, is it best to look at said coins paired against ETH? So yeah, typically, when you're looking for kind of like long-term strength or weakness, checking, the against Bitcoin chart is always a good idea just for general assets. And I still think even if you are looking at something against ETH, you should always still put it up against Bitcoin, because although we do expect ETH to probably be a little bit stronger, Bitcoin dominance, I'm not expecting to drop below 40% anytime soon in the market. So it's still going to be the dominant asset in terms of just market breadth or market size. But ETH should get a bit of a boost due to this whole ETH ETF. And that's kind of where we've been putting our long-term bets over the past couple of months. So should you look at versus ETH? Yes. I would say your biggest, versus ETH chart is going to be your Bitcoin versus ETH, because obviously if Bitcoin, and that's not the right chart, ETH BTC. So, and if you're looking at this, I'm going to zoom out to the daily, but if you're looking at this and this is moving down, your high beta ETH plays are not probably going to be performing super well. But if it's moving up, your high beta ETH plays should be performing pretty well, because if ETH is moving higher against Bitcoin, you're playing a high beta ETH play. So therefore, that asset should be moving higher than both of these, right? That's kind of the oversimplification of that kind of thesis. So in my opinion, I think your best bet for kind of general strength is going to be the ETH BTC chart. But let's pull up SNX ETH. And so if you are looking for legitimate strength, okay, so basically you're like, okay, I think ETH is going to outperform Bitcoin here in the next week, month, whatever. Now I'm going to go find the asset that I want to be a high beta ETH player, or that I believe is a high beta ETH play. So if you're looking at SNX and you're like, okay, this is the chart versus ETH, and we've basically just been stuck in this consolidation range for, I don't know, 2 years. But the highs are all the way up here, kind of, we can start drawing, this is going to be resistance right here. And then if you can break into that area, then you'll basically just be in a range all the way up to 0.0015. So if your thesis is that, hey, we're going to get back to these, really good alt conditions due to the ETH BTC ETF, then you can start to kind of draw general targets on the chart based on what you saw previously. So is the expectation of things reaching an all-time high a little bit lofty? Yes, but I don't think that reaching this resistance level at 0.006 is that lofty. And that is a 3x compared to ETH, and I'm sure it'll probably be a little bit more in terms of the actual coin, just given, how large the movement is, because this is just versus ETH, right? So it's definitely a good idea to look at the versus ETH charts, because it'll show you kind of what you think, it can kind of give you a little bit higher targets in terms of that high beta ETH play. But some of these you're not really going to have too much data for as well, like TIA, TIA or SCI or SUI. There's very low amounts of data for that. So then you're kind of just hoping for like price discovery type of environment. So is your question correct? Yes, you should be looking at those. But before you look at those, in my opinion, you should always be understanding of what's going on in the ETH BTC chart. Then you can kind of move into SNX ETH and say, okay, I now believe that ETH is in a great position here against Bitcoin. Now I want to look for my high beta ETH stuff. And so that's probably the process you should play. But you do have one part of the process down, and it is correct in my opinion. So with that being said, we are going to go ahead and wrap things up. I mean, it's been a very boring week for the market. I wouldn't expect, too much excitement, as we end January. But again, big thing you want to look out for, because if PCE is good tomorrow, I do expect, a positive outlook heading into February. If PCE is bad tomorrow, then it could set us on the wrong foot heading into February, and we could have to be patient for a couple more weeks. So good luck. Happy trading. And again, if you're not in the TTC community, 14-day free trial at tradethechain.com gets you access to everything that you want. And it is only a trial, so risk-free. Good luck. Happy trading. See everybody tomorrow.